discussion. It's a very fascinating subject because it actually puts both service and people at the center of the discussion. People as stars, service as the hallmark. What are success mantras of making people resources the most coveted differentiator in your food service business? Front-end customer servicing, as we all know, those are the people who can change, make, or break the game for you. And if indeed that is true, how does one build a warm hospitality experience in an eating out atmosphere? Right people, right skill set, right time, right place, right format, and right approach. How do we bring them all together? This is really the heart of the discussion that's coming up right now. How do you build successful teams? How do you empower the next generation, leaders of tomorrow, and who will shape the industry? Well, we'll have a moderator for this session. Dominic Costaby, Director, HTI, please come on stage. And the rest of the panelists as follows. Sanjay Coutinho, CEO, Baskin-Robbins. Gauri Devidayal, Director of The Table. Professor Dilip Patel, Dean, Nalanda International Management School and First Faculty of the SP Jain Institute of Management in Mumbai. Rahul Deans, who is the President at Cocoberry. Ritesh Kumar Chaudhary, Director, F&B, JW Marriott, Mumbai. And Sandeep Kataria, Chief Marketing Officer, Yum India. Welcome to this panel. I request you all to take your positions on stage so we can kick this off. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are all set to kick off this spectacular session because it's really very important to talk about people and service who are very much the front face of the industry in the retail business. I've already introduced our panel, but what's most important is my co-moderator, Dominic. Perhaps you could interpret the subject as you see it to kick off this discussion.
Thanks, Sherry. So, when you say people as stars, I mean, personally, it's a conflict for me because I find that generally it's the numbers people, the finance guys who really take the calls. And although it should be HR, so I'm going to be kicking this off on a little tangent where I'm going to ask the panelists to give their views on the subject, maybe in a different way. So let me throw the thing open to the panel. And the question I'm going to put up is, does the hospitality industry in general actually respect people as resources? And since we've got a lady on the panel, I'm going to give Gauri the first go at it. Gauri, why don't you take a mic? So does the hospitality industry in general actually respect people as resources?
That's probably not a good note to start on because I don't think so. I think that the service industry is still seen as as not the most sort of glamorous job. It's not something you wouldn't find people wanting to work in the service. I have a restaurant, so I'm speaking.
Why would you find people not willing to work in the service? Because that's where I'm coming from.
My experience, and just to give you a very quick background, I have a single restaurant which I've had for the last 4 years, and that's my sort of the extent of my involvement in the hospitality industry. So I'm speaking purely from that experience. I still find, I mean, less now, but when we first started, that guests don't have the same respect for people working in the service part of the restaurant as one would like, or as they might have in abroad. And so in India, it isn't given its due credit. So I think that's a huge impairment to attracting really high quality sort of human resource, basically.
Okay, so we've got Sandeep here, who's with Yum, and yes. So Sandeep's with Yum, and he's worked up internationally as well as in India. So just a take on whether, because what Gauri said is that internationally it's better accepted working in the industry. So do you find that difference?
Hello. So I have a completely different take, I must say. In Yum, I think we strongly believe in it, is the fact that we are, as an industry, in the people business. We just happen to sell food.
You just
Yeah, the reality is, if you look at it, how does the customer interact with us when you come into a dining restaurant? Who is he interacting with? What typifies the brand to the consumer?
Sure.
It's not like an FMCG market where the product, the packaging sells off the shelf. The people personify the brand. Yeah? So therefore, the role of people is way, way beyond it. So when we started off, our CEO, when we split off from Pepsi, I think it was late 90s, the dynasty model that he said, which would help us get to where we are with 40,000 odd stores and 1 million plus people, his first mantra was people capability first, satisfied customers, and profit follow. And that's something which you will find anybody who's ever worked with Yum will be able to play that back to you. So for us, therefore, it's quite the opposite. It does
so
start from
you
there.
find it
I
easy. You
just wanna
find it easy to get
clarify.
people.
So what we do is, given where the QSR is and where we typically employ from, we employ a lot of youngsters. A lot of them get their first experience of working with us. Yes, they move on. Yes, the industry does have the issues of high turnover, etc. But then we are, as a company, as a multinational, we can afford people a career, which is much more than just in our restaurant. And that's, I think, what helps us keep and retain people. So currently, our global chief operating officer for KFC is a person who started as a restaurant general manager in the first KFC.
That's great.
20 years with us, now leads the global business for KFC. So you do, given that you can give them a career, it does help you get there.
Actually, I think even Marriott, Ritesh? Yes. Yeah, Marriott also has some, I mean, very interesting way of handling the staff. So
Yes, I think Marriott is the only organization in the world which says put your associates first. We strongly believe that if you take care of your associates...
But I don't think it's the only institute in the world because we had Sandeep smiling here.
Well...
because they claim the same.
In different ways, I guess.
Yes, but we as a policy, we are very categorical in saying that if you take care of associates first, they take care of the guests themselves. And we as an organization believe a lot in associate engagement. Like everything, right from the CEO to the bottom of the pyramid, as we say, is focused from associates, and it starts with associates.
So you got the pyramid upside down.
I beg your pardon?
You have the bottom-up
Yes,
approach.
Definitely, definitely. We believe that...
Is there a challenge in India with the bottom-up approach? Because you see in India we have a lot of the hierarchical ways. So in Marriott, for example, or in Yum, do you all have a challenge where people are not willing to listen to the bottom, go down to the bottom and listen to the associates?
Definitely not. Well, we believe in a lot of engagement, and there is a great engagement between the senior management, so-called senior management, and the junior. We don't really have those hierarchy lines in between. We pretty much dine together, work together, shoulder to shoulder all the time. So we try to eliminate those lines, and also I think in India perspective, the hospitality industry has evolved. What it used to be 5 years or 10 years back, it's not there anymore. Like Gauri talked about what's there abroad and what's there in India, there is a complete difference in it. I think the gap, what it used to be there, is shrinking now. And we are very much on the global platform, and Indian hospitality industries our own domestic brands have also learned that if we put people first, it really makes a lot of difference, and it has great and the direct impact on the business.
So I'll go to an Indian brand which is Coco Berry and maybe get Rahul's opinion on it. Well, Rahul, what I would like you to elaborate on is like, do you all also follow the bottom-up approach, and is it realistic? Do you actually listen to associates?
I think the biggest problem with people in both the retail and hospitality sector in India is
Hold
that
the mic a little closer,
in India, the fundamental difference between India and most of the world is that the person selling you the product can't afford it. Think about it. A car salesman can't afford a car. The person in Shoppers Stop selling you apparel can't afford what he or she is selling you. A person selling you a burger probably can't afford that burger. And given the way Indian society is organized, the relationship between the buyer and seller is almost like a master-servant relationship. It's not a relationship of equals. In the rest of the world, especially in the West, it tends to be a relationship of equals. I agree with what Gauri said earlier. I mean, the same Indian customer in a fine dining restaurant in India would probably treat a server differently than in the West. it's very difficult to break that. It's very difficult to have a relationship of equals. I think some people in India have done it. The Marriott's probably a good example of that.
Sorry,
where-
the Marriott.
Yeah, I mean, at least a few times I've gone there, I've kind of felt that the staff are empowered, you tend to talk to them as equals. I've not really seen it happen in the quick service restaurant space in India. Probably happens in a few fine dining areas. But the biggest challenge is to break the class barriers that exist in our society and not make it a master-servant relationship, make it a relationship of equals.
Yeah, but that would be you're talking about the master as in the guest. So right now we can't train the guest. So what would you train your or empower your own people how to handle the guest?
Yeah, it's sometimes you've just got to give them confidence of not sort of looking the customer in the eye, not starting and ending every sentence with sir, and just trying to act as an equal to the customer. That actually gives them a lot more confidence. They feel empowered, and they end up then really telling you what the customer wants, and also advising the customer much better.
On this, I'd like to get Baskin Robbins and Sanjay's views on it. So your internal customer can afford the product. I'm presuming a Baskin Robbins is not so high priced, or your salaries are not so low.
Not really. We are premium, but yet affordable. But
I like that.
But it's not something that you would have it too frequently. But I think, yeah, for us, human capital is of prime importance because we are in the fun business, and we believe we don't sell ice creams, we sell fun. So who'll sell fun? I mean, our people. And I think, and today, if you look at the people in our organization, most of the functional heads have all been in the system for a while now. They've grown up from the ranks. In fact, personally, I'd like to say that I started off as a regional manager for West, eventually to head the company. And we've got a lot of people who've risen to senior levels.
Is there a conscious effort to make them rise to senior level? Like, do you have a training program or
yes, we do.
a growth path plan?
We have growth path. We ensure that there's a right fit. I think that's extremely important. And, culturally, we inculcate the fact that, see, we have a whole lot of customers. I mean, we have distributors who are our customers. We have franchisees who are our customers. And we have the end consumer, the tertiary consumer. So us is a little more complex in a way, So we got to keep the entire chain happy. So all the people right from the
people
bottom
who
to the
join
top.
you,
Yeah.
the people who join you, where do you all source them from? I mean, anyone is allowed to jump in here, and we've got Professor also on the panel. I'm sure a lot of your students probably are looking at opportunities in our industry. But if anyone could jump in and say, where do you actually source your people? And then we could probably go on, how do you upgrade them? So where do you source from?
See, we have a lot of internal referrals.
Okay.
I think it makes sense because people, who are working in our organization, our employees, are brand ambassadors themselves, and they are able to sell, the company in a way that, if it's a good organization, I think they are brand ambassadors, so that's where they get in a lot of traction, and they know, in fact, in case there are opportunities. And besides that, we also have a lot of stores, so people go and ask, inquire at the stores. We have a website, so there are a lot of channels to get this. But senior positions, yeah, we use a lot of, there's a lot of cold calling.
So what you're saying is a lot of the people come in through your internal customer itself. So they tell others how they experience the brand from the inside.
Absolutely.
Maybe Yum, I think, would be the largest recruiters right now in this panel, on this panel. So would you agree with that?
No, absolutely. That continues to be one of the key sources of talent, referrals from employees who are working with us. And especially when we are looking for people who want to have a career with us. That's what our focus is. And I think that's the slight difference between overseas and here. When you see people working in the QSR industry overseas, a lot of them are very clearly there for a short term. They are doing it alongside working, studying, etc. In India, people we're looking to bring in are people who we believe should want to have a career with us. So a lot of
so there is a difference between the way you work abroad and in India.
I think the way the industry recruits, or the kind of people that join the industry.
So you're saying out there you have maybe a more educated or a higher class of people who are getting into the industry as a part-time option, and in India you are looking at somebody who would stay with you for a long time.
So I think, yes, we do have that first type of people in India as well, people who are coming in, clearly seeing this as a bridge before they go out and study further. That is a source for us in India as well. But yes, much larger, and our own focus, given where our growth plans are, we need a lot more people moving up within the organization. If you're opening 150 restaurants every year, and that means we need 6,000 employees, we need 150 restaurant managers. So you would much rather have people who want to have
that's a thought that I have, is that, you see, everyone's got growth plans. I'm sure there are people in the audience also, you have growth plans. And I find that most of the people are generally poaching from each other. Is there anything that you are doing to set up maybe in academics or tie up with some academic group to nurture talent at a very young age? I'm looking at the panel.
So for us, of course, there is a scholarship which is available for people to be able to study further. That's part one. What we've managed to do in several countries.
No, I'm not talking about studying further. I'm talking about just getting them into the industry, hospitality, because hospitality needs a certain breed of people.
Of course.
Yeah, you need people who can get beaten and shaken, especially in India, and still keep going on in hospitality. Yeah, I'm sure that's where Gauri was coming from when she started off, because the customer tends to maybe look down on the internal customer, on our team.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to your point about staff being poached, my experience actually is that rather, I mean, you can only, it's not really poaching, because the main thing that drives people, yes, you have to provide a conducive environment for your staff. You have to, it has to be a friendly environment for them to work in. But I think from a restaurant's perspective, what I've noticed is, as long as the restaurant is successful financially, that's the biggest attraction for staff. So you may be poaching them from another restaurant, but essentially people move where, money is a huge driving factor.
Money?
Yeah, because not only are they paid a salary, but they're also paid a remuneration that's linked to the performance of the restaurant, because there's a service charge element. Now, I'm speaking entirely from a restaurant, so I know it's different for QSR and hotels, but from a restaurant's perspective, the service charge that gets charged to guests gets passed on to...
The guest feels the burden.
Well, no, the guest feels the burden, sure, but my point is that it gets distributed to the staff, so their remuneration is directly linked to how well a place is performing, and I think that's a big factor in attracting or drawing staff, rather than me actively going and poaching, because people aren't going to just leave. If they've been with a place for a long time and the place is doing well, they're not going to just leave for a slight increment.
So there's a dichotomy here where you are saying that money is a big factor, but maybe the conducive environment. So if one of you could help me out defining what you would say is a conducive environment, which would not put a burden on the company and make it still financially viable or competitive. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, for me, a conducive environment, money is important, like Gauri mentioned, but I think the reputation of the company is important. For example, people would rather want to work with the industry leader than somebody who's got a couple of outlets or somebody who's not really known in the market. Apart from that, conducive for an employee means fairness. So very often in a promoter-run company, if there's a perception that my remuneration is not transparent...
Rahul, if you could hold the mic a bit closer, because I can't get you.
Yeah, for a lot of employees, it's important to be, that the employers seem to be fair. It can be something like complete transparency in salaries, getting a pay slip, no hidden deductions, just operating in a professional way rather than operating in a way a typical owner-managed company might operate. Those things are also pretty important to employees, though the salary remains paramount. Also, I think poaching sometimes is a very short-term approach, because you're hiring for skills. You're not hiring for attitude and competence.
But I differ here, because you say poaching is a short-term approach, but I think everybody's poaching.
Not really. I mean, okay, speaking from CocoBerry, for example, in our stores, we only hire freshers, because that is one way we can give them some growth by promoting them, rather than hiring somebody laterally as, let's say, an outlet manager.
You actually have a policy of only hiring freshers?
At the stores, yes.
Amazing. Any one of you have that same policy?
Can I also add to that?
Yeah.
Also in my management team, interestingly, not one person has any prior experience either in frozen yogurt or in the dessert category. everybody's come from different backgrounds. My head of operations is an army officer who knew nothing about the restaurant business. But for me, running operations of a QSR chain is like running an army unit, which is why I chose him.
Amazing. So I think we'll get the professor to tell us about how his students would look at maybe getting into the hospitality industry.
Dominic, I'll first join you in the earlier topic in terms of this poaching part. I'm an outsider. I don't belong to hospitality industry.
None of us do. None of
please,
us do.
Please take my observations with a pinch of salt, a lot of it perhaps. You please recognize one fact, that in the current setting, Indian businesses, all businesses, hospitality included, they're growing at a very rapid rate. According to one statement, this year itself, the need of people will be 40% more than what you had last year, in 2015. Now, where are they going to come from? Let's be realistic about it. Let's be realistic about it. At the front line, you may not poach, or you may not lure somebody, or you may not attract somebody to come to join you with all kinds of facilitating environment and also incentive. It's a fact of reality of life which is to be accepted by all of us. The question is, the challenge is, how do you really fence yourself so that exit becomes impossible? Or you create exit barriers of the right kind. I was discussing with somebody in the morning about this. And the exit barrier creation is your task as an entrepreneur. And I think the test of you being a successful entrepreneur is how successful, how capable, efficient you have been in terms of creating those exit barriers. That's the underlying theme. Because at senior levels in all companies, you name the groups, you name the companies, multinational, Indian, large, small, medium, this is happening. We are seeing it day in, day out. So realistically speaking, I think the task before each one of us, as also each one of you, is to create such exit barriers.
So I think Sanjay wants to jump in here and tell us about some exit barriers besides the contract signed, sealed and delivered.
I'll really agree with Professor. Today this has been a challenge for the industry all through.
Like this and close.
Yeah. So I think, I'll agree with Professor. This has been the challenge for the entire retail industry, not only the QSRs. It's not poaching, I would say. It's just that the rate at which the industry is growing is so tremendous that people just shift for a few thousand rupees. And how are you going to stall that? I mean, I don't think today we have, a sense of any barrier that we can create. We are still scratching our heads. I don't know, Sandeep could
No, exactly. That's what my point is.
Because the salaries that we pay at the front-end levels, in fact, they are the brand ambassadors. We could be sitting in boardrooms, but that's where the churn is. So the biggest challenge is you lose people there at the front end, and by the time you finish your first round of training, you're never going to be able to do refreshers because you keep doing your brand orientation all over again. You're
doing your induction all over again every day.
Exactly. So that's the challenge. And
so how do you face
really
that
easy.
challenge? So is there anyone with an answer on how to face the challenge?
So the point is that in every category, for instance, in cafes or in fact even in burgers now, with so many burger chains coming up, it's easy meat. I mean, they open stores, they just pull people from McDonald's. So someone's already trained, you just pick them up. So even the even the non-performers move at 25–30%.
I think that's a brilliant point being made here about the non-performers. I think one of the discussions that have been around here is about skill set. I think we need to dwell a little bit upon that as to how do you empower the next generation to have better skill set than they currently possess, because while poaching appears to be a given strategy, how is that pool becoming larger? How is that pool becoming more consistent? And as you all are using the word brand ambassador, phrase brand ambassador, truly speaking, if indeed your staff is your brand ambassador,
absolutely,
the investment, the nature of the investment has to go beyond money. So what is that nature of the investment? Perhaps, Dominic, you want to take that on first and then, spread the word around.
Yeah, I think Ritesh wanted to say something about how they manage to retain people or train people, because Marriott's got good systems, right?
Yes. I think in last few minutes, our attention and of the discussion has been focusing on the remuneration bit of it. Well, I strongly believe, and my views are completely influenced by my organization, not only current, even my previous organizations.
Are you referring to Taj?
Yes, I work with Taj, Leela, and currently I'm working with Marriott. I think we strongly believe that in hospitality organization, we have to respect the individuality of a person, engage with him, then we need to develop the person as per his needs. And every individual is different. And if a person, if that individual is going with the sense of accomplishments, when he's hitting the bed in the night, and he thinks that, okay, I have learned something, I have achieved something, and it is for my personal development, I don't think money plays a very important role out there.
See, I think that is more euphoric or utopic. But how do you go about achieving it? How do you go about delivering it? I mean, rather than just saying this is how he should go to bed.
See, first of all, we need to be very clear in our target. We discussed that we should not be talking more about numbers and financials and other things. But end of the day, all the companies aim to do that.
Exactly.
So when you're engaging with an associate, when you're engaging with your employee, you need to be very, very clear in your communication. And what we do, that we give them an achievable target.
Could you give us an example? Could you give us an example? Let's say about an associate. No, give us an example. Say an associate.
Yeah, for example, you know, let's say there is an associate in the restaurant who is responsible for the certain number of tables, and your restaurant has a budget. So you give them a budget that, listen, gentlemen, today I am expecting you to do, let's say, 30,000 rupees of business in this given amount of time. And if he does that, if he gets pats on the back, and in a quarter, in a year, you are able to measure that how much business he has got to the organization, that is quite measurable. We also measure our guest satisfaction scores. And there also you can actually go back, trace that, okay, this particular individual was able to get those maximum results.
Guest satisfaction scores not exactly hit it because there are many guests who don't log on, and you'd probably get the... Yeah.
Well, that's not the only parameter.
You're talking about the GSTS that you'll have.
Yes, I mean, it's very much there in most of the, especially hotel organizations. So it's one of the major criteria. So we are not only talking about one only criteria of the guest satisfaction. We are talking about financials, we are talking about guest satisfaction, we are also talking about the various processes which are involved and how engaged that particular associate or an individual has remained with that process. And last not the least, it's also about the total overall learning and development exercises. So it works on the balanced scorecard model, which most of the organization is following these days, all the progressive organizations. So I think at Marriott we strongly believe in that,
I think Ritesh,
we follow that.
Sorry, Sandeep wants to tell us, but Sandeep, could you also throw light on, let's say, what Gauri, sorry.
Prof?
Yes. Shelly, sorry. What Shelly brought in about the skill set. So what do you all do? What do you all do to develop the skill set?
Let me go back a bit, and I think we'll cover three things together. I'm referring back to what Prof said. We need to be, as managers, as senior guys, we need to be responsible for the exit barriers. Yeah. And besides the rational stuff my friend talked about, I think the biggest exit barrier that large organizations or organizations have is the culture of the organization. Yeah. If the culture of the organization can value and make sure that the employee feels valued, you can move forward. For us, for example, there are three big tenets that define the culture. The first, which I think we are quite famous for around the world, is the whole recognition culture, which means do not wait for an annual awards ceremony. As and when you find excellence, as and when you find an employee going a little bit out of their way, bringing something which is beyond what they will be expected out of their day job, recognize it and have fun doing it. So everybody is empowered, every restaurant manager, every restaurant assistant manager, empowered to be able to celebrate that and add that back. That's one. The second is celebrate diversity. For us, that's a very, very big play for us. So on two fronts that we really drive diversity. One is, which I think we all talk about, but I'm not sure how much we are able to succeed with, is gender diversity. For us, now 30% of our employees are women. We've just opened, I think about 3 months ago, our first ladies only KFC in Darjeeling. Great experience for us and want to take that forward.
When you say ladies only, meaning only ladies serving or only lady guests?
Only women running the whole restaurant.
And what about the guests?
I'll leave that to your imagination.
No, don't leave.
That is one of our challenges in that restaurant, I think. And that's why it's a pilot for us to take
Where
forward.
have you opened this, you said?
Darjeeling.
Darjeeling.
Yeah.
Okay, that's safe.
Yeah. So that's
You don't want to try
second
Delhi
piece.
yet.
The second piece of diversity, which is very close to our heart and works well with our growth with our large heart, is the inclusion of the disadvantaged. For us, the specially abled people, hearing and speech impaired.
Fantastic.
Where we have now got 20 restaurants which are run by them. So they are the majority of the employees. So 70% in each of these 20 restaurants are hearing and speech impaired. And going back to your earlier question, how do you enable them? So for those people, we do have what we call Yum Academies, where we will help them to be
You
reach a
said
stage.
Yum Academies, so you
what we
have
call a
several
Yum
of them?
Academy.
You have
Yeah.
several of them?
Yeah, we have 6 of them, where we are helping people from there who've not had the background to be able to come back and get employed by us. It, of course, requires a bit of investment for us in our equipment and the way we train, all of that. Senior managers need to be able to speak in the language. But that's where we believe is the right thing for us to do, and they tend to be our best run restaurants across the country. So that's, I think, the second big one for us, which is inclusion, whether it's gender or specially abled. And then the third piece, and I go back to my first topic, which is about career development, learning and development for us.
Yeah, that's
the fact
critical.
that you have opportunity, as I say, if I'm opening, last year, as I said, we opened 155 odd restaurants. We do need the 155 restaurant managers. We do need the 600 odd shift managers.
Where do we
and
get
they
them
need to
from?
come from the team.
They're
So if we
all
can
promoted from within?
Not all, but we'd like to get
Could you give me a percentage?
A majority of our people.
When you say majority, could you say 55, 70?
Yeah,
How
we
many?
would like to get 65% of our team. I don't have the number off my head, but our endeavor always is to get the majority of the people from our own teams. And that, I think, is the third piece. Putting that in belief in all people, being able to give people the opportunity to be able to move up. That's a big joy for us, and that kind of defines, those three define the culture for us.
I think while you were talking about the hearing impaired, and Sanjay mentioned that we all do it. So I presume Baskins is also doing something like that?
We all do this. In
Coco
fact,
Berry also?
most of the industry does it. Most of the QSRs, we all do this. Because typically what happens is we try and avoid the front end, but where you have the preps and, okay.
For us, it goes across.
Okay.
Well, the joy, and this started off in 2008, so 7 years ago now. And it isn't, as I said, you have to make sure that you adapt and your restaurant is able to do that. But for us, they are the majority. They do all roles. In fact, we have now a restaurant manager who's specially abled.
In fact, that was my next question. That can you get them up to restaurant manager level, and how will they interact with the customer? How are they received by the customers?
As I said, they are our best run restaurants. Among our best run restaurants, they have the highest consumer satisfaction scores. They have the lowest turnover scores. And
I think
we
a lot of the audience would
we
be.
We can't get enough of them.
I think a lot of the audience would be standalone restaurant owners. You could look at, probably taking on the hearing impaired after what we've got here on the dais. Yeah, go ahead.
So in Coco Berry as well, 5% of our frontline store staff are physically handicapped. But they're there, and sometimes people ask me to talk about diversity, and they think it's some kind of CSR initiative. It's not. I just happen to want to hire the best people there, and those people are there. What they kind of make up for by not having an arm or a leg is the fact that they're extremely sincere, hardworking, and very honest. And like Sandeep also mentioned, my best run stores are run by differentially abled people.
And they stay on.
They stay on. May I?
Yeah, please.
Would you permit me to show some slides which are related to this very quickly? They're just visuals, and I won't take more time. I'll not take more than 1.5 to 2 minutes. See, I am really inspired by what you are sharing, and see, I'm going to give you some example of a front end from a different perspective. Now, this is a social gathering, and what you see there, they're all volunteers. How do you really make them committed? There are 2,000 plus volunteers who served this Mahaprasad for 10 days, 150,000 each day. 150,000 each day. How do you really inspire them to do it? That is what we have to learn from informal Indian organizations to be translated into our practices. There's another example. This is purely voluntary. I'm sure you must have heard of this name, Anna Lakshmi. Now, this is a restaurant in Chennai, also in Coimbatore, also in Singapore, also in Malaysia, also in Australia. You'll be surprised to know that this is commercial come voluntary. All the females that you see here and the people who serve are coming from very good families. They come and serve. The serving person here is a professional. They are professionals. And it's happening for 25 years. How do you really draw that kind of a commitment? How do you have that kind of a shared vision is what it is. And the third one is just here, just cross. This is just an outlet. It's a retail outlet. And where you can see people being served very happily. So I have traveled from something which is 100% voluntary to something which is voluntary and commercial to commercial. Now the challenge between all of us sitting here as well as there is how to really have that kind of a perpetual commitment and passionate involvement and shared commitment is the challenge all about. Thank you.
See, Professor, what you've thrown up is the question of how do you. What I think the audience out here, and even I would like to know from the panel is, how do you? I mean, what is the thing that you do to make your vision as part of or your dream as part of the staff? Do you all actually conduct some sort of a training or motivational sessions? Maybe we could hear from the table. I mean, you're a standalone. You're the only standalone out here.
I think one thing that's clear is, firstly, there's no one way. There's many things you can do. And also,
okay, so let's say, what is the one way
I'll come to that, but I also, just listening to what everyone's saying, what's very apparent is the approach towards staff in a QSR and a hotel and a standalone are very different. So I don't think it's something that you can apply generally across the board. It may not be practical to do what I can do in a standalone, like one single standalone, to a QSR, which is across the country.
True.
So one of the things that I found which is most effective is just what we call an open door policy, and also empowerment, which has been mentioned before. So just giving the senior staff who understand your your standards, who understand your offering well enough, empowering them to make decisions, whether it's on the floor, whether it's when it comes to guests, and not having, and you talked about giving them confidence. It's not just confidence, but I think it's also letting them know that they are part of the management. I mean, there's no point calling someone a restaurant manager and then not allowing him to manage the restaurant, as he thinks fit. So obviously it requires a bit of, the training and sort of, understanding how the business operates. But actually letting them do that is a whole different thing.
So you're saying empowering people?
Yeah, if it's a matter of saying, if a customer, if for example, we've made a mistake and we've sort of, the meal's been, sort of somehow, subpar for a guest, it could be that the manager takes a decision to comp the meal for the guest,
To comp the meal.
Yeah. So something like that, it shouldn't be where every 5 minutes they're having to call us up and say, ma'am, can I do that? Or sir, can I do that? That they actually are able to make the decision to rationalize.
Sure.
And I think that gives them the respect they deserve. It gives them the confidence.
Feeling of belonging.
And it's basically it's practical training. There's no better training than on the ground training. So no matter how much you can sit in a classroom environment and be talking down to them or like giving them sort of that training and it could be that they make a wrong decision. But
sure.
That is, in my experience, been the absolute best training, and I think they appreciate it immensely when they're given that, and you have to have the judgment to know you're not giving it to someone who's just going to abuse that power either. But that's where then that's sort of your judgment call.
So I think it's time we got some questions from the audience. You've heard what the panel has to say. So if I already see a hand going up. If you have any, you could either throw it directly to one of the panelists, or you could throw it in general to them?
Hi, my name is Saurabh. This one is open, whoever wants to take it. So we spoke about,
If you could introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Okay, we're working on a startup and...
Starbucks?
On a startup.
On a startup.
QSR model. And my question is, so talking about sourcing people, we spoke about how established brands kind of get people and different channels from. But for a startup company, the same task kind of becomes difficult because we yet have to prove ourselves. So, poaching or some other mediums would be a little tougher. I'm sure you've all gone through the growth phase. For a startup, what would you suggest would be a good channel to source people from?
Okay, I'd like to take this one because Cocoberry, in a manner of speaking, is a startup. We're just 5 years old and we've gone through all the startup pains. It doesn't make sense to poach simply because you will not be able to match the salary that the big boys are paying. But I'll give you a couple of examples of how we've tried to do it. The person who handles my marketing, she's a girl who was an outlet manager. I took her into marketing. She had never done marketing in her life. But frankly, it's not rocket science. I mean, we tend to value book education a lot, and we tend to look only for MBAs from premier institutes and so on. I think that's overrated. And by the way, I'm one, and I'm saying that. A lot of what we need is not rocket science. So this girl, Bhavna, she handled my marketing for a couple of years. She left to join another QSR at a much higher salary, which is good. I'm happy for her. It sent a strong signal to our store managers that you too can become a marketing person. And I had no difficulty pulling out somebody else to fill a slot. Another thing we did in our stores, and we've discussed some of the challenges that we have in QSR. I had an internship program, I still have, where undergraduate students are invited to come and run our outlet. Now, normally, undergrads, if they work in the QSR industry, they work for minimum wage flipping burgers. In our case, we said, come and run an outlet, be responsible for its P&L. And I remember the first person I took, a girl called Akanksha. She ran a Connaught Place outlet. It was an eye-opener for me because she had spent 1 week in the outlet. She didn't have a name tag. And there was this customer, a lady who came in. She's a regular customer in the outlet. This was her second or third visit. And she was served. And Akanksha said, ma'am, have a good day. She said, you too, Akanksha. And the store manager who happened to be there was very surprised. He looked at her and he said, this lady has been coming here for 2 years. I've seen her 50 times. And she has never once addressed me by name, although my name is on my name tag. But she's addressed you. And it's all about just being able to establish a rapport because Akanksha is somebody who is a customer herself. She comes from that background. She can relate to the customer much better. And she's actually thrilled that she was getting a salary of 11,000 rupees a month, which she said, frankly, she didn't deserve because she was just having fun at the outlet. So,
great.
Also, Rahul.
Should we give others a chance? Let's just get a few more questions and we come around back to you. Some more questions? Okay, we're back with you.
Yeah, after that long round of questions, we're back to you.
All right. So when you hire a younger generation, especially the younger generation now is a little...
You'll have to speak a little slower. It's not coming across very clear out here.
So the younger generation now is quite impatient. Do you face a problem with retention, retaining them for a long time?
Yes. I think attitudes now towards work are very, very different from what they were at least when I started working.
Is it good or bad?
No, I think it's bad because people want to be promoted every year, every 2 years. And sometimes I tell them, I mean, you're going to work for 35, 40 years. Do you want 20 promotions? So it is a problem. But one of the things we do is actually a policy called up or out. So every 2 years, if you're not promoted, then leave.
If you're not promoted, then leave.
Yeah, then leave. Because I can't afford to keep increasing your salary for doing the same job. The business can't afford it. If you can take on higher responsibilities, you should be able to do it in 2 years. If you can't, it's better that you go somewhere else because you will get impatient, you will get frustrated, and you'll find a way of making money somewhere else in the business. And that's a huge problem, at least in the QSR industry.
Could I add to that?
Yeah, the up or out. I would like you to add to the up or out, which you mentioned.
In fact, I would say impatience is good. Having ambitious people, especially the attitude that the generation now has, I think it can be channelized well. In fact, all their impatient energies can be channelized towards the business. I think with more responsibility and accountability, I think if you can give them that accountability bit, I think there are high chances of deliverables too. And then you can incentivize that, that really fuels them because they want, finally at the end of the day, they want the moolah. And with that, obviously, the more you scale up, I think the intensity at which we are growing, We need people all the time. And, you know, in fact, the last couple of years, we've acquired a few brands. So we need a lot of people, you know. So that's how we actually attract talent, and we channelize their energies. You know, we give them responsibilities. We tell them, okay, fine. You know, why don't you take this? You do this. You take up this additional role, and we'll ensure that in the next 2 years, this is what you get. We sign it off with them. You know, so I think it's. I wouldn't say it's really bad. It's good and bad in a way. It depends on what talent you can attract and how you can channelize those energies.
Do we have more questions? Dominic, if we don't have them, we'll give you the final word to make conclusive remarks for the session.
We are closing? I mean,
Yeah, you'll be closing it, yes.
Okay. So actually, I just want to take one more question back to the panel about this up or out policy, and I want a reverse take on it, because he says that either if you don't move up in 2 years, you should move out because it leads to frustration. So maybe someone from the other side of the panel, maybe Yam or Marriott would like to join in.
Dominic, just keep in mind that it was a time when we were not growing very rapidly, so the kind of opportunities that exist.
No, in fact, I'm exactly where you came from. I also firmly believe that if you don't grow in 2 years, you obviously don't have the potential, and you're going to create a lot of frustration within you and also your teammates below. But I just want to know if that's, I mean, I ended up sharing, but I wanted someone with a reverse take on that, maybe.
Well, I think here you cannot have one uniform policy and one size which fits all.
True.
You have to have respect the individuality of a person. We had many instances, not only in Marriott, but in my previous organizations as well, where we wanted a certain individual to grow and take the higher position. But they themselves come back and said, listen, I think I would not be able to add value to that position, and I'm not ready for that. I need some more time, and I need to learn more. So we especially, I think most of the hotels, and in my current organization also, we give enough and more opportunity through management development program, executive development program.
There is also
we celebrate successes.
Yeah,
We
we
also have example, you know, where like my current colleague, who is the director of loss prevention, which means security. He used to be the security guard outside and used to stand outside Marriott's. And in 7 to 8 years' time, he is director of security today.
No, Ritesh,
and we have many more examples like that where...
Ritesh, what we're talking about here is when a colleague comes back to you and says, you know, I'm not ready to handle this responsibility. Especially, there are organizations, I don't want to take names, but where people didn't want a promotion, not because of the responsibility, but because very often at the lower level, due to maybe tips or illicit means, they were earning more than the actual salary offered. So what would you say to a person like that?
Well, I think it's also about the career progression that they see for themselves. Everyone, I believe, more or less, they know where their limit lies. There are people who are aspirational. There are, I know I have some young management trainees. There are people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, maybe a service associate, a steward. But they're as aspirational, and they want to become the CEO of the organization, and we respect that. And we give them enough and more opportunity through various ways and means so that they can develop themselves and groom themselves to come up to that position. But there are people, you know, who are very comfortable, those who don't want to move around, they want to be stable, so to say, and they have other responsibilities, other priorities, and they want to focus on everything. So what I mean to say here that we should not be generalizing a particular policy and say that, okay, this is the policy which should be for all, but we have to respect the individuality and take it case-to-case basis.
Thank you. So we promised you some success mantras, and I think what some of the mantras that have come out is, one is the case-to-case. That means you cannot treat one size fits all sort of an attitude. That would refer to both your internal customer and also I suppose the suggestions offered by the panel. It may not exactly suit your organization depending on the segment you are in. But overall what we've come down to is, if you create a conducive and fun atmosphere with timely intervention in terms of, you know, the incentives and salary, your people would probably stay on, and then we could have that barrier to exit, which is what we are all looking for. On that note, I'll hand it back to the moderator.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. I think he summed it up quite nicely, and it's been one of the most engaging panels we've had, and can't deny that our moderator also made a big difference. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you all for being here.